Hello everyone, it is Christine here and I'm going to be sharing a project today that I have been working on, and it's a project being hosted by the lovely Tori over at Cool Kooky Creatures. I will link Tori and her channel in the description below. And the project that Tori has set up is to create a postcard, a stitched postcard each month. For this year, 2024, and Tori will provide the prompt for the month. Now, the prompt for January is cozy on up. And Tori said to us, you can do whatever you like. Take the prompt wherever you want. There are no prompt police, as it were. And so I had the idea when I first heard about the project that I would like to work with some vintage images and to use my technique where I transfer inkjet printed images onto fabric, which is what I've done here, and I've talked about that in some previous videos as well. I will put together a proper tutorial because someone has requested a start to end tutorial, so I will do that in a future video. When I got that comment, I'd already created this piece, so I couldn't do the start to end on this piece. But I basically, print out images and then transfer them using fabric glue or Mod Podge onto fabric, whether it be a cotton or a calico or whatever. This was just onto a quite thin cotton, and then I stitch into those images. So the image I started with for this one is a vintage holiday poster advertising the Abruzzo region, and the reason I selected this image for January was it's got mountains, it's got snow, and it's my dad's birthday this month, and he spent a very lovely time cycling around the Abruzzo region and really enjoyed that particular part of Italy. So I thought it'd be nice to make him a birthday card while I'm doing this postcard project, because this year I want to kind of do projects that are either for useful things or projects that I can gift to people so that they can enjoy a bit of my stitchery as well. So I thought it'd be lovely to make something for Dad, and I just thought this was a really touching little image. You've got the beautiful mountains, you've got the sun lighting them up, so even though there's snow on the mountains, there's a real sense of warmth. Particularly as I've stitched it, it has become even warmer, so I do think it's kind of cozying on up, even though there's mountains and snow, and there's sort of little ladies, whether they're nuns or something, huddling together. There's a real sense of maybe a bit of spring coming or something, so a bit of hope of warmth ahead. So hopefully Tori's happy with that as an inspiration of the prompt, but I've just gone with it, and I thought I'd come and show you where I'm up to. We can do some stitching together, and then I'll show you how I'm going to turn it into a postcard. Tori didn't tell us that we had to make it look entirely like a postcard, but I thought it would be kind of fun to have a front that's a pictorial front, and then a back that's a little stitched fabric back that looks like a postcard. So we'll come to that, and then hopefully we've got time, and I'll even show you quickly how I make little fabric stamps as well. So here's what I've done so far. So I took this image, got it down to the size of a postcard, transferred it onto the fabric with the Mod Podge or fabric glue. Key thing to remember, which I always forget every time, is to reverse the image so that when you transfer it face first, it comes out the right direction. And then I've just been having a lovely time stitching into it. So I've done outlining, stitching in a sort of a reddy colour around the writing, and then used some of my lovely razzle thread from Sue Spargo with split stitch to stitch out the Abruzzo, even though that looks like a V, it's a U, Abruzzo when you pronounce it. And then some more of that beautiful Sue Spargo thread just to do little shrubs and little sort of pokey bits in the foreground, little grasses and little vegetation around there. We can finish putting some in here. I thought I might just I also used some of the lovely cottage garden threads I got recently, so I thought I might use a bit of that just to intersperse in, because I used some of that up here in this more yellow bit. And then I used some crochet thread and just some regular brown thread as well. Actually, I think it was this one, wasn't it? To go over the outline of the little church, because I wanted that to kind of be prominent in the scene. And then I actually use some of the little tail ends that you get when you work with this thread. It tends to unravel at the ends, and I just smooshed it between my fingers and got it quite fluffy, and that's what's in the underlying area here. I just laid it down and then put some little stitches in, and then I used some Appleton's wool over the top of it to make some little shrubs. So that's the Appleton's wool. Let me just get my other light on. I'm just worried it's not quite light enough. Hopefully that's a bit better. And then I also used Appleton's wool in this paler green colour, which I've got here. It's actually a variegated green. And then just some regular embroidery cotton in all 6 strands to just sort of fill in the area between and make this extra little bit of pine area up here. And then I did some little terraces, because you sometimes get little wine terraces and things, and put little shrubs on those. And then up here I used a lace which naturally had this sort of undulating edging on it, and it lined up quite well with the mountains, but I do want to add another little bit of lace in to be the little mountain here. Now I had it by my desk literally a moment ago, and it's gone missing, as things always do. So I want to add a little bit using just one of these little undulating bits. So I'm going to just cut that because there's sort of this little area under here, and what I'd done originally was just done some stitching following some of the lines of where the snow was in the image, a bit like where it's sort of snowing down here, but it still didn't have enough of a snowy effect, and that's when I decided to add the lace, and I thought I could use this little bit to add another little snowy cap. So what I'll do is I'll just cut this little snowy peak off, and then I'll see if I can just slip it under where the edge of that other one is, and it's okay if it probably even goes up a little bit higher. Yeah, I think that will look nice. So let's start by getting that stitched down, and then I've also done some just using regular sewing cotton, sewing lovely little colourful outfits for the ladies. So I'll show you on this one how I've done that, including the little headdress. So let me just grab some white cotton. So I thought this might be a fun little one because it might give you an idea how you can take an image, whether it's a vintage holiday poster image like I have, or just some other image, and you want to make a little greeting card or postcard. And how you can apply, whether it is laces, or I could have equally used some fabrics for the mountains. So just use the base, even outline a base, even if you don't want to do the transfer. You could trace the broad elements of a design and then stitch it. I just find when I do the transfer, it doesn't transfer all the colour or all the detail, and you kind of add it in. I even noticed that I did the little gate a bit different than how it is in the actual picture. So you're kind of given that license to do that. Just going to pop through with just some regular sewing thread. I thought I tied an end in, but I pulled it through the first time. So I hope you're having a great day or a great evening. We had a lovely time chatting. I'm filming this on Sunday evening, chatting last night on Saturday evening. Had a little live premiere. It's where I film the video ahead of time, and then I join my stitchy friends in the chat, and we just had a lovely time. And I'm sharing all my not all my wonderful ideas. There's even many more ideas in the comments, but all my ideas that I had come up with in a little brainstorm of things you can do with Ort balls or Ort beads. Just so much fun to make. So let's get this stitched down. Put just a couple of little stitches across. And don't worry if you do happen to do the transfer technique. If they end up a little bit, like I always find I mustn't put enough glue right to the corner, so you get a little bit of scuffing. But I think for a vintage postcard look, it's actually quite perfect to have that, even where the colour has sort of, faded a little bit. I actually like that. Because you will find with this technique that the colours do end up more, less dark. As you can see in here, it's almost like there's shade in the valley, whereas here it's, particularly with the stitching I've done, it's almost like there is sunlight in the valley. So we're we're cozying on up in the sunlight. That's how I'm interpreting the theme. And it will just be a lovely little card for Dad. So you can see how much stitching I've done just by looking at the back. I know Annie Claxton, you will be loving seeing the backside. With your stitchery swatch, you're always looking at that first. So while we've got the white cotton in, let's start doing some little thread painting on our little lady down here, and we'll start with the little veil or nun. I think these are maybe nuns, little nuns habits. And so they have a little bit that folds across the top. And so something you will find if you do this paper transfer is it sort of creates more of a canvas, so you can kind of almost see the little pin or the needle pricks when you're putting it in, but once you kind of get some stitches in place, it isn't that noticeable. Just outlining where the sort of the hatch habit would be. Get rid of that loose end. Oops, managed to undo that stitch. And then I'll probably just do a couple of little stitches to make the outer of the habit, and then I can always come back and wrap the thread with another bit of thread. I'll show you how I do that. So I'm just following where the design is, but as I say, you can improvise a bit as well. Like I changed a little bit of the colouring on some of the other ladies' outfits. Something I don't like doing is doing little faces with stitch, so I'm going to leave their faces sort of, you can see them in the design, but I'm not going to do stitching on them because I think sometimes that makes them look a little bit, I don't know, a bit harsh. Just put some longer ones down which I can couch over if need be, just to make the veil-y effect. Although it might be nice if they're sitting up a little bit, it might give that veil sense as well. But I can always put a little couching stitch in the middle also. So I probably will put a couching because I want them to curve a little bit in. So couching, I'm just going to pop up on one side of the two of those threads and then pop down on the other side just to sort of hold those threads in place. Put another one in down here. Oops. And another one over here. And then I'm just going to wrap the thread, so I'm just passing my needle under the thread that's there. Just sort of gives you a bit of a softer finish, I find. And I'm just going to put a bit more of the thread up for the top bit of the habit or the hatch. And then the habit also goes down and across down the other side. So I'll just take it over to here as well. A bit harder to see here. Oops. So I can probably just put a piece down here maybe. Just give a little hint of the habit on this side. Would be fine, I think. Again, I might just couch those down because they are a bit long. Couching is good when you've got a long stretch of a stitch because it will just sort of hold it in place. So I'm just popping up very close to one of them and then just taking my needle over and going back down on the other side, which then holds those two little threads together. That's a little habit there. Or hat. What's the hat of a habit called? I don't know. I'm assuming these are little nuns coming out of the church. I should actually look up what this image, whether this is a particular reference to a particular place. So then for the outfit, I was thinking I would take a bit of artistic license and use this beautiful vintage purple thread that I've got. Evening here, and I can hear the birds starting to roost in the trees outside, chatting away to each other. Do you have nice wildlife around where you are? I love hearing about friends overseas that have squirrels or other creatures that we don't have here. Trying to keep you close-ish because these are quite small little images down here. So I'm going to map out where the little arm is that goes across. So I'm just putting some little outliney stitches in for the arm. And then I'll do the arm across the other way as well. I think that's just sort of shorter in the image. It is helpful to print if you're kind of stitching this, just to print a little reference image. Not that I did that when I was doing mine, that's why I kind of got doorways that look slightly different than they were in the original. But I figure that's okay because then I'm not breaching anyone's copyright. I figure I have transformed it quite significantly from how it looked originally. I'm pretty sure this one, they usually search on public domain, so I'm sure this one was in the public domain. I've got a nice little stack of vintage travel posters. Just map out that arm over there, so she's got her little hands clasped. I think that would work. So I've just sort of done it so that it looks like she's got her little top on, and then we'll come down and work on the dress. I quite like doing the dresses and creating the sense of lovely flowing dresses. So we'll come down here and then we will start putting some stitches in. So I'll do a nice curved outline stitch by couching this thread down, because if I just laid it straight it wouldn't be curved. So I'm going to pop my needle up on the outside of the curve. I'm going to then pick up the little thread and put a stitch that holds it in place so that it curves down the shape of the body. And I'll do one on the inside as well, for the inside of the apron. This one runs a bit better straight, but I'll still put a little couching thread in one because it just helps to hold the thread, because it's a longer stitch. And then I can start laying down some more stitches, and I might do them in half length, so I'm sort of doing a long and short technique where I'll just lay stitches until I get a nice look, but they'll be sort of half the length of the skirt rather than doing a whole length, in which case I would need to curve them and couch them. So this is just another alternative to couching. But I'll just make them slightly different lengths, just so it doesn't create a sort of a line at that midpoint where it looks like it cuts off. You sort of want the threads all to meld together. So some of them I just take up a little bit further. And then some I can do longer, just so to give that impression. that's looking pretty nice as a little skirt, and then we'll just go across the bottom below where the apron will be and just put some little shorter little pleats down there. That was the bus just going by. It's otherwise very, very quiet here apart from the birds or the animals. But yeah, get the odd bus or the odd car as we have got there. That's pretty peaceful. The neighbours will probably prove me wrong and someone will start lawn mowing or leaf blowing or something. Very proud of myself. I did the lawns. Alex wasn't. Alex is still recovering after his ops, so he's not to do the lawns, and they didn't need to be done yet. But I just wanted to kind of master the lawnmower, so I did it while they were still nice and short, and not making it too tricky. I used to always use an electric lawnmower, but Alex has a petrol one, so I just had to learn the ins and outs of that, but easy enough. So that's given a nice little fringy effect down the bottom of the apron, so I think that's probably fine. I'll just go up and put some little buttons in down the front just I'll just do tiny little stitches to invoke a button. Just 2 little buttons, I think. Just gives a bit of detail on the body, and then I don't have to sort of fill in the whole of that front area there. So I'll tie that off. Then let's do the apron in the yellow colour, or goldy. I've used a variegated yellow over there, but I thought I might use a more goldy colour, saving up my orts. I'll pop that other tail in there. But yeah, I thought this one might be a nice goldy colour to use, differentiate her apron a bit. So I'll just get this one threaded up. But it's just been one of those, fun little projects. I wasn't sure how it was going, but I just sort of kept at it. It's probably taken longer to kind of materialise into something that I thought, that's quite nice. Kind of took a while to get the stitches down and looking the way I sort of wanted it to look like. I try not to go in with too many preconceived ideas, because otherwise you can kind of get a bit dispirited or think, oh no, it's not really looking how I thought it would look. So sometimes I just stitch and see where it takes me, and I get ideas of how I want to stitch things as I go as well. Because originally I was just going to lay down those fibres, but then I decided I needed to put the more bobbly bits in so that it wasn't out of scale with the mountain sort of behind it. So again, I'm just laying down some longer stitches here, and I can couch them if I need, but I don't mind if they're a bit more sort of balloony, because they are on the apron. Just lots of long stitches. And the good thing about the paper transfer method is it gives you a surface that doesn't tend to pucker, so you can do some longer stitches. It's a bit of a solider surface. As I say, it feels a bit like canvas is how I would describe it. Just catching on my work surface, catching on the little shrubs that I stitched. Probably need to put another one in over here. But yeah, I like how you can just take an image or a little sketch or something, or if you had a fabric that was printed with an image, and just stitch into it, or add laces, add fabrics as little collage pieces. It's all experimenting is good. That's why I like these little projects, because they kind of not force you to, but they just give you something, a prompt to jump off with, and then you can sort of take it where you want. Sometimes the results are surprising, and you actually think, oh yeah, that's a really cool idea. I'm going to do that again. So that's that. So what I might do is I might just put a couple of little holding stitches over the top, just like a little belt, I guess, which will just help to anchor those top ones down a bit, and just add a little bit of detailing up the top. And I did on one of the other tops, I'll show you in a moment, not that, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I almost did a little bit of weaving to create a top on one of the other ladies. But I think for the skirt, I don't want it to look woven, I want it to kind of look long and flowy, which is the effect that this has. I think, so there's the skirt, which I think is lovely. And that was where I did a little woven pattern on the little pink top. So I think that's, oh yeah, we were going to do a little bit of stitching up there, weren't we? So let's do that. And then we'll go on to turning it into a postcard. I won't show you all the stitching together of it, because that would be tedious, but I'll show you the approach so you can do it yourself if you like. So I was going to take a bit of this cottage garden thread, made locally in Gippsland. Someone's putting their bin out noisily now, just to prove me wrong about the peacefulness of the neighbourhood. Now let's thread up. And so yeah, I did French knots down in the front, and then I just did little up and down sort of seed stitches in the back, and using a variegated razzle, but this is then just a variegated cottage garden Pele thread. And then I've just recently dyed my own threads. I think by the time you're watching this, that video would be up. Not sure what order my videos are going to go up in. I've got a few waiting in the wings. Just doing some little upward strokes just to fill in this area over here. Although you don't even have to fill it, would have looked probably fine even if I left it without little vegetation. It could have just been a more mowed area. There goes the bus back in the other direction. It's all happening here tonight. I do have the window open because I didn't want to have the aircon on, because sometimes that disturbs the sound in the video a bit, I think. I've done that there, and then I was thinking I might do a little shrubby bush up here, maybe just using some little French knots, because it looks like there's something in the design. So just do some little French knots to give the sense of a shrub. Oops, that one didn't form a proper French knot, but that's okay. We'll go with it, and we will just tack down that little loopy bit, turn it over, and I can make it into another little knotty bit. Never fear. 2 French knots for the price of 1. That will happen when you're not holding onto your thread that tightly when you pull it through. I did have this in a hoop when I was stitching most of it, because it was just a bit easier, but I'd just taken it out to cut it down just to work out what size I'd want for my backing piece. So you didn't have to watch that tedious bit of it. I try and film my videos in one sort of go through where I can. It just saves on editing time. I'm not really here to edit and make things all schmick. I'm just here to create and share. share my adventures. I really do love sharing ideas and seeing people get inspired to give things a go. So yeah, I'm just doing a whole bunch of little French knots to make a little sort of bushy shape to sit up against the wall up here. Again, this is where you can kind of improvise, pick what colours, pick what sort of, you could have even just put a little tree or something here. But I just thought, no, I'll just make a little French knotty bush. Seeing I already had the thread threaded. So let's do a single little stitch there rather than a French knot, just making different texture. One more French knot over here. And I might put some more down here. Still got enough thread. It's a great way to play with different colours and different types of threads on these little sort of small stitchery pieces, similar to the sort of little stitchery swap squares that we did for folks as part of Annie Claxton's stitchery swap, the great big little stitchery swap. And I could obviously go right through this area and put in little tufts of grass as well if I wanted, but I think yeah, Dad's birthday is tomorrow, so I better get this finished off tonight. So let's cut that off. Let's put that into our thing. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. If I wanted to, I was thinking if I wanted to hide those sort of little more raggedy corners, I could put a trim on. I can always put that on afterwards anyway and just stitch that into the seam. But I think, yeah, it's for Dad, so I don't want to make it too fancy schmancy. So next up, I'll show you the back that I have pre-prepared. So all I've done is taken a piece of grey felt, just like the sheet felt, not the I don't think it's from my nana, so I don't think it's a wool felt, although it's very soft and lovely, but they're just sheets of felt. And I've just cut out a rectangle. That's where I was measuring to get a rectangle of the size of the design once it's sort of folded over. And then I just took the same white fabric that I'd used for the design and just used it here. I think it's even got a little bit of colour from when because it was out with this when I was doing my thread painting with, not thread painting, painting of threads with my Inktense. So I think it got a tiny bit of colour, or it could have even come off the design, but you can barely see it and it just makes it look vintage. And so all I've done with this then is taken a rectangular piece of the cotton that was bigger than the felt, and I've folded the edges in, and I've just used a little bit of Yoo-hoo glue to just fold them over and attach them in place while I stitch them, so that will just sort of hold it on a temporary basis. The great thing about Yoo-hoo is you can easily unglue it if you need to. And then I just drew myself a little postcard design. So I had a look at one of my lovely little floral postcards, and it just has a little divider here and then some lines for the address. And so I have just stitched that on with a black crochet DMC number 12310. So it's just a cotton pearl. Just a vintage one I had in my collection, and so I just used a backstitch, my version of backstitch, which ends up looking like this on the back rather than loopy loops. I've got a video where if you type in, look on my channel for backstitch, I show you 2 different ways to do backstitch, and you might be amazed that yeah, there is more than one, because most people think there's only one way to do it. So I've just done that backstitch to create each of these, and the way I drew them on was using my Inktense. I know some people are a bit wary of these, think that they might leave long-term lines even once they're heater raised, but because I was stitching over the entire top of them, it's no worries at all. And so then this can either just be a postcard. If I want to write on this, I could stitch onto it and write Dad in 2023. I was also thinking that you could very easily just put some little corner pieces in, sort of like with something like this. Put it across the two corners, and then you could just slip a piece of card in if you wanted to actually write on some card, or you could write with your Inktense. Just know that it's going to erase if it gets heat. So if it was put in a really hot spot on a window or windowsill, the writing could erase. So I don't know. I might do it with the friction, and then I'll see. Dad and Mum might get the surprise of seeing it erase, and I can always write back on it for Dad. I haven't yet worked out what my plan is, but there are a few different options. So the other thing that I thought I would like to do is to create a stamp. But first of all, let me just show you what what I'm thinking in terms of how it will be brought together. In fact, we can do that now. Let's glue these edges with the Yoo-hoo. So I'm just going to run the Yoo-hoo around. It's okay if it gets, because it doesn't kind of create that really stiffness that you get with a like a PVA type glue. So I'm just folding it up to where the paper is. And you just want to make sure you don't have any edges poking out, even if you have to sort of angle them a bit. Okay. Then I might just angle this bit in a little bit. And let's just make sure it's going to sit nicely. I think they'll fit together quite well. Yep, that will be a great fit. Just like that. Yeah, I think that's going to be really, really sweet. The other way you could do it as well is make this as a little envelope in which you could then slip something inside, but then you'd want to back both of these similar to the way I'm backing these two together. You'd want to put an extra backing on, or you could put an iron on interfacing to do a quick version of that. But I think I'll stitch mine together. But first of all, let us have a go at doing a little stamp for up here. So I was thinking I might use a contrasting, just so that it doesn't sort of blend in, use a calico as my little stamp. So I've just got a little section of calico over here that would have come from something. And so I'll just want to draw myself a little rectangle-y sort of stampy shape. Something like that. Doesn't have to be precisely precise. So this is what I'll cut round to be the outside of my stamp, and I'm going to use my pinking shears. You can also get little scissors that are like stamp cutting scissors that you can use with scrapbooking, but I find they don't cut very well, whereas my pinking shears most definitely do. Sorry, I'll just bring it up so you can actually see it. I'm just using the line as my little guide. Again, this was drawn with my friction marker, so it won't, even if you can see some little blacky bits. Let me just bring down my paper to glue onto. And so I also had one where I'd typically forgotten that I had to reverse my image before I image transferred it. So I've actually got a little one, and I was thinking I could use this little area here as the middle of my stamp, because then it'd be like a little reference to the front of the image. Now, I don't want to use my good scissors. Oh, here's a pair of, hang on, course my scissors had fallen on the floor, my non-good scissors for cutting out. So what I might do is cut it a bit bigger than I need it to start. Definitely not straight at the moment, but that's okay. We will get there. There's my little stampy bit. Now take it down. Probably should be ruling this rather than doing it by freehand, but that's okay. Don't think it's a problem. It's got that little wrinkle crease because it kind of makes it look older anyway. Still need to take a bit more off the sides. Okay. And then down to just below that area there. Just need to take a smidge more off. That's pretty good. So let's just glue that down onto our fabric. I might actually use my fabric glue for this because I do want this to adhere without me having to stitch this one down. Oops, sorry, just bumped the camera. It's always going to happen when we're down that low. So I'm just going to use my skewer to carefully put some fabric glue onto the back. This is on that same cotton fabric. Put that out of the way there. Now let's see if I can get it to sit down straightish on the stamp. That's pretty good, I reckon. Okay, putting the lid back on the glue. Let's put our little clean our little glue skewer off, and that can live on to glue another day. And then, so it's going to take up most of that area, but I think that's okay. You know, I think the stamps usually go over here, don't they? So it's probably slightly oversized, but I think it's still pretty nice. And then it's a question, yeah, I think eventually I will actually, just do a little stitch around the outside. In fact, I probably should actually use I'll use the fabric glue on that as well. That will save me having to stitch. Oops, and yeah, it's not coming out the top, is it? I will need to get that skewer back. Decisions. Kind of just figure things out as you go. You think through them. You're always worried on a video that people think you're a bit indecisive or sort of unplanned, but many of us are just doing these videos as we create. We haven't thought through the whole thing. We're experimenting. But yeah, this is just a Kmart fabric glue, but it's a good little one. You'll also just stop these edges from fraying too much. Just move that out of the way and bring this where you can see it. otherwise you won't be able to see a thing. And then let's just position this down here. So that will be our beautiful little church spire stamp. And so yeah, as you can see, it's quite good having it in the contrasting, just slightly contrasting colour and fabric. And then I thought it could be kind of fun to put a little postage stamp. Now I don't have exactly a postage stamp, but I do have something that looks kind of postagey. And I've got my Abruzzo. These are stamps I've had since I've been a kid, actually, when I used to do stamping. But it's an archival multi-surface chalk ink pad, and it still works. These are some more recent stamps that I got. So I wanted to have something that would be a bit like a postage stamp. And I've got some passporty ones as well, but this was the first one I found tonight, so I thought, nope, I'll grab that one out. Let me just cover the stamp pad back up. And then I'll probably be best if I put this onto a slightly firmer surface. It's a nice hard surface. And then if I just pop something, might pop it up here. And let's push it down and see how we go. Ah, beautiful. Very happy with that. So it's just created what looks like a little postmark, maybe a little message from the postmaster saying we've underpaid our postage, who knows. And that's a bit of fun. So all that is left to do now is to stitch our two pieces together. Obviously, if you were to want to do any other stitching on this, like putting a message or something in, you could do that. Then you need to work out which way you want it to be up. I think that way that's fine. And then all we need to do is do a stitch around. Now you could also put some glue onto it. I don't think it's going to need the glue. So all I'm going to do is thread up my needle again. Take out the black thread I was using. Get the white regular sewing cotton. Can you hear the cicadas now? They are singing. It's the sound of an Australian summer with the cicadas singing outside. They're just proving me wrong on the peacefulness as well, aren't they? Although they're such a sound of summer that I sometimes don't hear them if I'm not kind of listening for them. Like they must have started a while ago, but it was only then when I was thinking about them to comment to you that they kind of came into my awareness. So for the stitching, we're going to use a ladder stitch, which creates a great little invisible or almost invisible stitch. So I'm going to secrete the end of my thread into this little seam here, just by passing my needle forward a bit and pulling my thread up and through, and then I'll just get rid of a bit of the tail before I pull it in. So pulling this in, and you can also at this point, you could use some of your little clippy things if you wanted to. I might actually just put one over here. I just don't want it to leave an imprint or anything. Yeah, it might leave an imprint there, so I'll move it a bit down. Okay, and so here I'm just going to travel back to the start over here. And then we can start the process of doing the stitch. So what I'm now going to do is come over directly across from where the thread is on this side, and then I'm going to pass my needle inside the seam. It will just be a little bit hard while we get started, but we'll get there. So just inside that seam. And this is what they call a ladder stitch, because you're bringing your needle across to the opposite side piece of fabric from where your last stitch popped out. Each time you're going just to the opposite side and then going along inside the seam. That's why it ends up almost invisible. And if as you go you tighten it up, you'll see that it just brings the two bits of fabric together but without really visible stitches. So again, I've popped out on that side, so I'm going to come over to this side of fabric and then take a stitch forward with my needle inside the fabric. So that's what gives it that invisible effect. So we'll just do a bit of that, but I won't make you watch me doing that all the way around because that would be tedious. But it's often used for English paper piecing, but I just love using it when I am bringing two bits of fabric together. And this way you don't end up with raw edges because you've folded all your edges under and then you're joining your two bits of fabric. And the felt's also good because it hides all the sort of in-depth stitching you've done here, and it doesn't mean if you put this piece of cotton straight onto it, you probably have quite a bobbly background, but the felt avoids that issue. Again, just popping along, and as you see, when you pull your thread and tighten it, you just get such a lovely little finish on the side, and you've got no sort of visible stitches as you're looking at it. So yeah, it's a real keeper, this stitch. So I hope Dad will like his little card. I'm sure he will. He was actually meant to be coming over for lunch today with Mum, but he'd had a bad asthma attack last night, so he's resting up today. So we'll have to do his proper birthday lunch next weekend, I think. So we planned a lovely Middle Eastern feast. He's only got asthma later in his life, so I'm hoping that won't be my predicament. It was a lovely day here, but it's still quite humid. I've got the window open, as you can hear with the birds and the cicadas and the odd car. But it's humid. I think they said we're going to have less wet weather because we've had a very wet summer for the next week or so, and maybe some dry heat, which is what we normally get. It's harder at some points where you've got sort of multiple folds of fabric, so sometimes if it's a bit hard in one spot, I just try somewhere else with the needle. And we'll just get to the end. I'll show you how it all tightens up, and then I won't make you watch me go all the way round. So that's to the end now, so I'll just give the thread an extra little pull to tighten up that seam, and as you can see, it creates a really lovely little effect. And as I said, I don't think it matters where the postcard's sort of worn away a bit at the tops. I think that just adds a lovely little effect to it. Yeah, I'm glad I added that extra little peeking over there. And yeah, I think it's turned out really well. As I say, there were moments there where I wasn't sure if it was coming together. I love the writing down there. Originally, I was just going to outline it with that sort of reddy colour, but no, it definitely needed the full effect. But I just love these little ladies down here. Love how this one's sort of just looking off into the distance in a different direction. I am going to have to look up the story behind this little image if there is one. So hopefully that's given you some inspiration. Take an image and stitch it, or sketch an image and stitch it, add different textures, use different fibres, and how you can create a fun little postcard even complete with a little stamp. So we might do that in another video, just making some little stamps so we can have them ready for little postcards. But I guess I'll need to get onto the February one, so I'm not right at the end of the month for Tori's next one, which I think is something to do with star signs or zodiac. So I do have a bit of an idea for that one already. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon with another creative stitchy thread fibre textile related adventure. Bye everyone.